Kyle. Today we will be challenging the ideas of a communist, this guy.
I have spent my life as a campaigner against racism. My parents were campaigners against racism. My mother was there in Cable Street alongside the Jewish and Irish people opposing the rise of Nazism in Britain. Anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, far-right racism is totally wrong and absolutely obnoxious. And I've made that absolutely clear to everybody who will listen to me on this subject. And I'm sure you and I can agree that the strength of any community and society is respect for its diversity, respect for its multi-faith credentials, but above all, absolute opposition to racism and intolerance in any form.
And challenging the ideas of this guy.
I think there is the idea that we have to insist on our borders. There is something racist about that.
Giles Fraser, the Anglican priest. Let's get started.
There are 2 million British nationals living in other parts of the European Union.
9! There are actually 1.2 million Brits living across the entire continent of Europe. 2/3 of those are working according to the UN and Immigration Watch UK, compared to 3.3 million Europeans that are living on the little island of Britain, where 1/3 of them aren't working. And that's just Europeans alone.
I think we should also be aware that immigration to this country, particularly the numbers that have come since the Second World War, has given us a health service that much of which we can be very proud of, has helped our industries, our engineering, our education services, our rail services, and many others.
So because migrants have helped provide public services since World War II, that justifies a complete open door to masses of unchecked people who we hope can speak English, are educated, have skills, not criminals or paedophiles, and contribute whether we need them or not. Fingers crossed.
I don't think we should blame immigrants if there is a problem of housing or a problem of schools or a problem of hospitals or doctors' places.
I don't know anyone who does blame immigrants. I know people who are unhappy with the quality and the amount of them that are here. The vast majority of people blame the EU and the British government, i.e. the previous Labour government, for allowing this to happen on a scale never before seen in history, and who don't seem serious about doing anything about it, never mind strict controls.
We should look to the way in which governments have systematically underfunded those services.
But is it wise to keep the borders open until we've dealt with the problem of government first?
And invest in them so that we go forward together as communities. Together, embracing diversity, yes.
Embracing diversity. An idea that currently isn't working well due to the massive amounts of it that's forced upon us. It's hard for some people to adapt, causing them to be resentful and scared. In 23 of the 33 London boroughs, people who identify as white British live in a minority, according to the 2011 census. That's not diversity. That's a complete wiping out of generations-old community values and different cultures working it out in their own time. What have you done?
I'm very strongly in favour of building a lot more council housing and giving security and fair rents to those living in the private rented sector.
Well, it's private. It shouldn't be any of your business. But of course you're a socialist, a nanny, an interfering old sod.
I think we should be proud of the society we've got, proud of being able to work together, proud of being able to live together, and we can be a model and an example to the rest of the world. We showed that with the Olympics. We can show that with how we develop and change our society for the better.
You're comparing the Olympics, sports teams who are diverse by choice, people chose those careers, to communities that are forced into diversity. That's a terrible argument. Also, British Olympics is full of privately educated athletes anyway. 1/3 of the medal winners went to private schools. So it's not that diverse after all.
Within the EU, there is not immediate access to benefits. There isn't immediate benefits of every kind, such as access to housing and things like that.
According to Full Fact, the UK's independent fact-checker, European citizens are more likely to receive tax credits than people born in the UK.
And so people coming in work here and contribute here. The vast majority of EU nationals that make their homes in Britain are actually working and paying tax and not drawing benefits.
According to the official data from the Labour Force survey, over the last 10 years, 90% of the additional households created in England was headed by a person born outside the UK. The UCLA study showed that between 1995 and 2011, migrants in Britain received £115 billion more services and benefits than they contributed in taxes.
If we decided to leave and therefore stop people working here, we'd have a problem because we'd lose a very large number of people working in very crucial industries in this country.
No one's saying we want to stop anybody working here. We just want to make sure they've got a job to come to. And we want to know who the hell these people are.
Well, if you restrict movement of labour across Europe, then you're defeating the whole point of there being one market within Europe.
So the rules of the market are like fixed rules of the universe and can't be changed under any circumstances. The question is, are the rules of the market more important to you than the wants and needs of the British people you're supposed to be serving?
This is also about protecting local wages and conditions. So if everybody coming in had to be paid the relevant local rate, things would be different. At the end of the day, workers working alongside each other should be treated the same and paid the same and have the same rights.
So everyone is paid the same, despite their ability to speak English and to operate machinery, skill set, dedication, appearance and travel costs, where once you could pay less and give on-the-job training to someone with more desirable personality traits, now you have to pay the same, which makes unskilled people less employable. I mean, I'm against the minimum wage for many reasons, without going into it too much here. There's issues for small businesses having to raise their prices to meet the regulations, and they have to employ less people and favour skilled people over unskilled people because they can't afford to do the on-the-job training, leaving unskilled people unskilled.
Is there any kind of upper limit to immigration coming into this country?
I don't think you can have one within while you have a free movement of labour.
It's not the free movement of labour, though. It's the free movement of people that we're concerned about.
Hello. I think Rowan Williams called it absolutely right this morning when he said we have to play our part in dealing with the refugee crisis. All of us. It's a humanitarian crisis.
There's a difference between refugees and economic migrants. And with the current system, we cannot determine who's who.
And Farage, for example, puts up that appalling poster which has a picture of a lot of desperate people fleeing from war, saying they're coming to threaten us.
Well, where are all the women, the children and the elderly? People complain about this poster but never discuss what it represents.
It's the very principle of a single market across Europe is the free movement of people. If you have the free movement of capital, you should also have the free movement of people.
If you have capital, you should have people. Why? Is it some universal principle laid down by physics? 9. It's an ideological commitment, not a given. The EU is not some pagan god or divine force that should be obeyed no matter what. While I was scouting YouTube looking for arguments to destroy, I came across this guy, Giles Fraser, an Anglican priest, who is for complete open borders for anybody who wants to come. Just listen to him.
Should there be an upper limit on immigration?
I'm not convinced there should be. I mean,
so you would take the up to 3 million.
But I mean, I don't think that's what's going to happen. I mean, I think that's a sort of fantasy figure. I think that's scaremongering. I don't think that's what's going to happen at all. I mean, you know, we haven't had this sort of obsession with borders in this country. You know, it was only 100 years old or so we had immigration controls. And there's a racist element about border controls because a lot of what's, you know, the fear is there's going to be, you know, the other, whoever the other is going to come and swamp us. And I think it's a fantasy.
How do you know that's not going to happen? I tell you what is a fantasy. Assuming you can push all these different cultures, languages and sets of values together, all competing for jobs and houses and public services on an unprecedented scale, and expecting it to all go well and everybody to just get along and integrate. That's a fantasy. I also should bring your attention to the 2011 census that showed the number of people living in England and Wales who were born overseas rose by 3 million in the previous decade alone. Only 44% of London residents now tick the box saying they're white British, and nearly 3 million people in England and Wales now live in households where not one adult speaks English as their main language. 23 out of 33 London boroughs, people who identify as white British live in a minority. Some of them boroughs are far from diverse. And that's data from 2011 census. It's now 2017.
Right, so you believe that people who, like Tim Montgomery, say there should be managed or strong national borders are implicitly racist?
I think there is the idea that we have to insist on our borders. There is something racist about that.
There's something racist about it. So he thinks places like Japan, New Zealand and South Korea are racist because they've got strong borders and are patriotic and want to stay that way. If it's racist for Western countries to want borders, why is it that Western countries are the most diverse, the most accepting? Westerners don't seem to be bothered about people's physical characteristics for the most part. They don't care. Putting Brits at a different standard to other countries, singling Brits out for doing something that other countries do, is xenophobic, mate, and hypocritical. The very things you accuse us of being.
Look, we know, you're one of those people who floats around the world on your passport because you're back and forth. Borders mean nothing to you because you're wealthy enough.
He floats around because he comes from a country that provides that luxury. He's gone through the correct processes and criminal records checks to get a passport.
There is a large group of people who feel completely that they have not been listened to, they've been unattended to, and they are readily exploited by those who want to go, and this is all about this sort of terrible, scary other called the immigrant.
9. People have been concerned about uncontrolled mass immigration for years before Brexit and Trump. They just capitalised on the concern and gave those people a voice. People are pissed off that they didn't get a choice, since it started on this scale with the Blair administration.
I actually think that this is being exploited by people like Farage and all those sort of, there's a very genuine feeling of anger that people have not been listened to, which is being exploited and changed and shifted in this debate over the referendum.
The country is being exploited by benefit shoppers, healthcare shoppers, grooming gangs,
rustlers, cutthroats, murderers, bounty hunters, desperados, mugs, pugs, thugs, nitwits, halfwits, dimwits, vipers, snipers, con men, Indian agents, Mexican bandits, muggers, buggerers, bushwhackers, hornswagglers, horse thieves, bull dykes, train robbers, bank robbers, ass kickers, shit kickers, and Methodists!
You look on the Statue of Liberty and there's that very moving quote on the Statue of Liberty, bring me your huddled masses, your teeming shore, all of that sort of stuff. And then, of course, no one's living up to that because they're building a great big fence around it to stop Mexicans coming in.
But that quote was made when immigration was at a more manageable level and people were homogenous, of the same type. Usually Christians, Catholics, Protestants, people who shared the same values. And you say that we're not living up to that. Please don't talk shizer, Giles. Britain and America have always been prepared to give jobs, homes, benefits, charity and support to foreigners, and being called xenophobic, racist, savage supremacists for it. While the real xenophobic, racist, intolerant, savage supremacist countries of the world are shielded from criticism. He's a complete and utter nincompoop, a twit. He's pushing for this from a very safe place, a safe space, in a civilised, democratic country with common law values. And he wants people to come here en masse, some of which don't believe in those values or ideals, and who haven't created safe countries with freedom of expression and equal rights. He's a turkey voting for Christmas. I wonder if he locks his door at night to keep people out To keep people out of his cupboards, his fridge, his pockets, his wife, or husband. It could be a bummer. And then there's the argument that, I think I heard Douglas Murray make this argument, that we need lots and lots of migration because there are some jobs that British-born people won't do. Which is an incredibly prejudiced thing to say, to suggest that there are some jobs that British people don't want to do. And I suggest that if that is the case, it's not because British people believe those menial jobs are beneath them. It's more to do with the incentive not to do those jobs, because the minimum wage isn't much better than benefits anyway. After you've paid your council tax, your mortgage, fed your family, there's not much left over. And the other reason why it's prejudice is because we think it's a good idea to collect all the best and brightest from countries not doing as well as ours and to bring them here, leaving their country starved of intelligence and the ability to better the country they came from. It only really serves the British economy, and the people who lose out are the people in the towns and villages from where the migrants came from. And all this stuff about hate crimes and racism on the rise since Brexit, all Brexit has done is encourage the media to focus on a very small minority of already existing racists and knobheads who have come out of the shell because they assume that more people support their views. The media love this, and they focus on it like it's the behaviour of everyone. And most of the rise in the so-called hate crimes are nothing more than anonymous allegations and reports made on social media. We have to treat our culture like a sentimental, like a delicate piece of china or woven tapestry handed to us by people who were slaughtered and starved to death so it could be delivered to us in the present. It's not wise to allow our culture to be overrun at a rate never before seen in history by some people who don't share the same values or appreciation for the amazing gift we have been handed. Western culture is far superior to anything that came before, and it should be treated as such.
You're the ones who want to end free movement of people. You're the racists. You're the isolationists. Do you not even understand in your nut what it actually means?
I'm not fucking racist! For the last time! Some of my best friends are black! You think I'm racist? What's this? A black friend, you fucking idiot!